the excise tax, it did tax whiskey, okay? Because that whiskey was being taxed, those farmers, they got angry, and they actually rebelled against the government because of that. George Washington, did he successfully stop that rebellion? Yes, he did, okay? Not only did he successfully stop this rebellion, but he also proved to America that this new plan of government, the Constitution, that it was strong enough to function in our new country, okay? Then yesterday, what I had you do is you worked with a partner. One of you read about the Whiskey Rebellion, and one of you read about the French Revolution. Your assignment was to summarize what was it, how did Washington respond, what did he do, okay? I'm going to give you 5 minutes to finish. Well, raise your hand if you're not finished with that, actually. So just one person. Were you not here yesterday?
No, I was here. He didn't do it.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what we're going to do then instead? We're going to go over our summary, okay? So someone tell me your summary for the Whiskey Rebellion. Cameron? So make sure you have something similar. Your notebook should be open.
The Whiskey Rebellion was a group of farmers that protested, but they were angry because they had to pay extra taxes and they had to lower their sales. So they decided that they were going to protest. As the rebellion started, they attacked and destroyed the homes of the tax inspectors. They threatened to spread into other states. So when George Washington responded to this, he sent 13,000 military troops led by Hamilton. 2 men were convicted of treason and later was pardoned.
Good. All right, so pretty much you should have the farmers rebelled because of the tax. George Washington stopped the rebellion. And that should be about it, right? If you put anything more, good. If you didn't, that's okay too. Okay. Now, before we talk about the summary for the French Revolution, real quick, back up for just a second. When we had our revolution, when we fought for our independence against Great Britain, who sent us money? France. So when they did that, we actually signed a treaty with the king at that time of France. And in that treaty, we agreed that if in the future they needed our help, we would help them just like they helped us. The problem here is that the French Revolution, the French people, they saw that our revolution was so successful, like, well, look at America. They can become independent. They can make their own form of government. We should do the same. So they actually overthrew the king. They killed him. They cut his head off. And so now George Washington has to decide, do we want to live up to our promise where we said we'd help them, or do we want to stay out of it? Okay.
They like have put on options and he's dead now. So,
Some would argue.
just kidding.
Yes, sir.
But did they hang his head like
She just said it
Ah.
on the top of the table.
All right, so somebody, guys, we're not talking unless we have our hands up. We're not doing that today. Raise your hand and give me your summary of the French Revolution. Good.
I did it yesterday, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he did his.
Can I read it?
Don't read it out loud. Yes.
All right, here's Abigail's summary. The French Revolution was a revolution caused by the same principles that America's fought was for earlier. That a government cannot restrict the basic freedoms of its people. Ooh, I like that. Washington sided with Hamilton. Washington issued a proclamation of neutrality that barred American ships from supplying war materials to either side, although some trades continued secretly since many private sailors relied on this market. Very good answer, Abigail. So, what happened was the French, remember we signed that document with them, right? Now that the king is dead, they're having their own revolution. They're looking to us to see, hey, remember when you signed that document saying you come help us? Well, where you at? Okay. Hamilton is telling George Washington, because remember, he's on his cabinet. into another war. We're already in debt. We can't afford to lose the money or the people. Thomas Jefferson, on the other hand, is saying, why we're not going to live up to our word anymore? Like, why sign documents? Why do anything if we're not going to live up to it? Okay? George Washington sided with Hamilton, and he issued something called the Proclamation of Neutrality, where he decided that America was going to stay out of it. If you stay neutral, you're not taking either side. Okay? So your summary should have something like that. All right? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you another song, the same from the same musical as yesterday, but this time it's again Jefferson and Hamilton. Remember, Jefferson said we signed the document, we need to live up to it. Hamilton says, no, let's stay out of it. They're trying to convince Washington in this song. Okay, so I'm going to play it for you. It's the same musical, but it's a different song. This is Cabinet Battle number 2.
No, we wrote that one.
And that's what y'all got from the whole book.
Issue on the table. France is on the verge of war with England. And do we provide aid and troops to our French allies until we stay out of it? Remember, my decision on this matter is not subject to congressional approval. The only person you have to convince is me, Secretary Jefferson. You have the floor, sir.
This is Jefferson.
When we were on death's door, when we were needy, we made a promise. We signed a treaty. We needed money and guns and half a chance. Who provided those funds? In return, they didn't ask for land. Only a promise that we'd lend a hand and stand with them if they fought against the pressures. And revolution is messy, but now is the time to stand. Stand with our brothers as they fight against tyranny. I know that Alexander Hamilton is here, and he would rather not have this debate. I'll remind you that he is not Secretary of State. He knows nothing of loyalty. Smells like new money, dresses like fake royalty. Desperate to rise above his station. Everything he does betrays the ideals of our nation. And if you don't know, now you know, Mr. President.
Thank you, Secretary Jefferson. Secretary Hamilton, response.
So now Hamilton.
You must be out of mind. The president is going to bring the nation to the brink of meddling in the middle of a military mess, a game of chess where France is queen and kingless. Who signed a treaty with a king whose head is now in a basket? Would you like to take it out and ask it? Or should we honor a treaty King Louis had? Do whatever you want. I'm super dead. Enough. Hamilton is right.
Mr.
We're too
President.
fragile to start another fight.
But, sir, do we not fight for freedom?
Sure, when the French figure out who's going to lead them.
The people are leading.
The people are rioting. There's a difference. Frankly, it's a little disquieting. You would let your ideals blind you to reality. Hamilton, sir, draft a statement of neutrality.
Did you forget Lafayette?
What?
Have you an ounce of regret? You accumulate debt, you accumulate power, yet in their hour of need you forget.
Lafayette's a smart man. He'll be fine. And before he was your friend, he was mine. If we try to fight in every revolution in the world, we never stop. Where do we draw the line?
So quick-witted.
Alas, I admit it.
I bet you were quite a lawyer.
My defendant's got acquitted.
Yeah. Well, someone ought to remind you.
What?
You're nothing without Washington behind you.
Hamilton.
Yeah, he's called.
Oh my God. Oh no, that's what you're
Okay. So, again, you heard Hamilton and Jefferson battling it out. They were both part of Washington's cabinet. Okay. Now, one of the problems that eventually Washington's going to have to deal with is he was very fearful of something called political parties. Do you think that Hamilton and Jefferson are the beginning of political parties?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they can agree. Okay. And the things, and this is again a musical. Guys, pick your heads up. This is again a musical, but they based it off historical facts. Okay? Because Hamilton and Jefferson, they hated each other. So you heard Thomas Jefferson saying, "We signed a treaty, we made a promise." Hamilton says, "The king that we made that treaty with, his head is now in a basket. Do you think we should take it out and ask it?" So Washington, you heard him say, "Hamilton, write up the statement of neutrality, saying we are not getting into it, we're staying out of it." Okay. Questions about the French Revolution? Okay. Yes. Yes. And he was one of the negotiators that America worked with. Okay, so what we did is Tuesday, we talked about 5 problems that Washington has to deal with. We talked about the debt issue. We know Hamilton made the bank in that plan. We talked about foreign countries. One of the issues he was going to have to figure out is who we're going to be allies with and who are we going to be, kind of enemies with. He's decided to stay out of it with the French, okay? Now we're going to jump to another problem. Yes, ma'am.
Wouldn't it cause problems though since he like didn't live up to his word?
It will. In 2 weeks. Yeah. So that's when we start talking about it.
Andrew Jackson or something?
We'll talk about Andrew Jackson in
2 months.
3 weeks. The craziest president we've ever had. Alright, so, essentially, yeah. Of the Indians. Yes.
So it's like Hitler, but
With the Indians.
So that's why people got the idea that
Like they killed all the Indians.
I mean, he technically didn't directly kill the Indians.
But he was
So,
like
people made it
they
How many still have Indians today? Everybody just spoke to each other on his day.
No. Okay, guys, so what we're going to do now is we're going to jump to, share down. We're going to jump to another problem for Washington. And we're going to jump to the problem of land and the Indians. Because we know that our country wants as much land as we can get. But the problem that we have is that those Indians are on that land that we want. Okay? What I want you to do is you're actually going to take out this paper. It says the Northwest Territory. It looks like this. We're going to read through this together. It's just kind of like an informational.
Mine is red.
Alright, so how are we going to get more land? How are we going to get the Indians off of it? And what are we going to do with the land once we get it? Okay. You guys know that when the Pilgrims, they first came here on the Mayflower, they kind of pushed those Indians west, right? We keep pushing those Indians west, and now that we are our own country, George Washington and our government realized that this land could be sold for a profit and then used to make more profit. Alright, so I'm going to read the first paragraph to you, and then I'm going to pick Torrance to read the next paragraph, so make sure that you're paying attention. An introduction. In 1785, the United States became land rich. As states began to give up control over their unused western lands, and Native Americans moved further west to avoid further conflict with the Americans, the United States government gobbled it up. Government leaders saw this land as an opportunity to spread the population further west, raise money to pay off debts, the massive war debt, and to use money raised to fund services like public education. So our government said, well, if we look at this land and we sell it, we can, number one, make a profit, and then we can start paying back our debt. And once we've paid off our debt, we can actually start doing things for our country, like providing public education. Okay? Torrance, read the next paragraph for me. Very good, thank you. So what this document did, the Land Ordinance document, what it did is it allowed the federal government to send people called surveyors, people who measure the land, and pretty much divide the land up into squares. And you can buy a section of that land for a cheap price, $1 an acre. That's really cheap, okay?
Yeah, it's like
really,
$2,000
really cheap.
today.
Way more than $2,000 today. I mean, there's some places where an acre of land is $60,000. Huh? Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So where, what's on here, like, when did Louisiana?
4 weeks. 4 weeks.
Like her lesson plans, how it works, every 4 weeks.
In 4 weeks routine. The one? Maybe? Alright, very good. Okay, pick someone to read next. Put that down. Turn around.
Hope was that American buyers would develop farms and communities further into the frontier. Over time, settlements would spread across the United States, and over government surveyors began the process thousands of times, applying geometry measurements to the frontier.
Okay, so pretty much what these surveyors did is they went out to the land, they measured it, and they used geometry, like the study of shapes, to set up essentially squares. And you can buy a square for a cheap price, okay? Jordan, pick someone for that last paragraph.
In 1787, Congress was provided for the early development of Northwest Territory by passing the Northwest Ordinance. Whereas the Land Ordinance set rules from how land will be carved up, the Northwest Ordinance created a playbook for how states will be added, what rules will be in place, and what the settlers could and could not do while living there. Eventually, the states Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota will be added according to guidelines set by the Northwest Ordinance.
Very good. So once people started moving west to this area, using that, the document that the government split it up, they then realized, well, not only do we need to split the land up, but now we need to make rules for that land, okay? I don't want you to get these two documents confused, so what we're going to do is we're going to define these two words real quick, okay? So just turn to the next clean page, and you can make like a little bullet point, and just write down what I said. You do a dash, star, or whatever, triangle, square, I don't care. Sure. Sure. Here's what I want you to write. The Land Ordinance on your paper of 1785 divided up land in the Northwest, just in the Northwest. Okay, make you another little bullet point right below that. The Northwest